6,000 years before the present, the colossal city of Uruk, by far the largest in the world, dominated the southern Mesopotamian plains of modern-day Iraq. With a population of at least 50,000 people, Uruk would not be surpassed in size or numbers for an astonishing 3,000 years, well into the Classical Age. The legendary homeland of Gilgamesh, the city was once enclosed by a colossal mud brick wall said to have been erected by the great hero king himself, spanning an impressive 6-kilometer radius. Yet, as incredible as Uruk was, it did not exist in isolation. It was simply the latest, though the most successful, in a long line of human experiments in communal living, stretching all the way back to the Stone Age. More than 5,000 years before Uruk rose to dominance, other smaller, though equally remarkable settlements had already begun to form in this region. These were the earliest known examples of permanent communal living, in other words, the first cities on Earth. Perhaps the most famous of these early sites, often linked to the biblical walls of Jericho, remains one of the most extraordinary settlements ever discovered. Jericho is a place of firsts. Here, 5 millennia before Uruk, we find the first known settlement in history surrounded by defensive walls, the earliest evidence of large-scale cooperation between groups larger than a single clan. It also contains the earliest example of monumental communal labor, a massive stone tower complete with internal steps, built long before writing or pottery even existed. What makes this achievement even more astonishing is the time frame. These feats were accomplished more than 11,000 years ago, just centuries after the last ice age ended, at a time when woolly mammoths still walked the earth. We don't know the ethnicity, the language, or the gods of these early people, but we do know that this region was one of the first places where animals were domesticated and agriculture was practiced on a large scale. Jericho is especially remarkable because, unlike other early sites dependent on fragile rivers or shifting climates, its spring has never dried. As a result, life continued here for thousands of years, making Jericho one of the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth. This is the story of Jericho, one of humanity's first true cities. The modern city of Jericho still sits above this ancient past. Home to 40,000 people today, it is more a town than a city, steeped in Spanish colonial history and tied to the pisco wine industry. Its modern identity, however, is shaped largely by the rediscovery of the ancient settlement and the wave of tourism that followed in the mid-20th century. Since the 1950s and 60s, travelers from across the globe journeyed here in search of ancient mysteries. And in those decades, anyone visiting the Nazca lines near the Pan-American Highway would almost certainly encounter a solitary figure, Maria Reich, the Lady of Nazca. For more than 50 years, she walked the desert daily, mapping, cleaning, preserving, and theorizing about the lines with relentless dedication. She carried her tools by hand, took local buses, and spent her days under the violent desert sun, all to protect an ancient cultural treasure. Similarly, Jericho was shaped by the dedication of meticulous archaeologists. In January 1951, Kathleen Kenyon, a rising star in a new era of scientific archaeology, arrived in the Middle East. Her methods contrasted dramatically with the reckless digging of earlier scholars like Heinrich Schliemann. Kenyon practiced careful, layer-by-layer excavation, preserving context and history as she worked. Jericho had been excavated once before by British archaeologist John Garstang, who confidently declared he had found Joshua's walls. But his work was heavily criticized, and Kenyon was brought in to reassess the site using modern techniques. Unlike many ancient cities whose geography changed dramatically, Jericho's environment remained remarkably stable. Nestled between 2 mountain ranges and fed by underground springs, it had been a natural oasis since the end of the Ice Age. Kenyon began her excavation at a mound on the edge of the modern town, known today as Tel es-Sultan. Though it looked like a natural hill, it was in fact a man-made mound, a tell, created by thousands of years of collapsed mud brick structures layered on top of one another. Using stratigraphic excavation, Kenyon peeled back the layers of history. What she discovered reshaped our understanding of ancient civilization. Garstang had dated Jericho's earliest settlement to the 4th millennium BC, but Kenyon found that people had lived here as early as 9,400 BC, nearly 8,000 years earlier than once believed. The most iconic discovery was not a wall at all, but a massive Neolithic tower, built around 8,000 BC, making it the oldest monumental stone structure ever found. At 30 feet in diameter and nearly 30 feet tall, it required more than 11,000 days of labor to construct, a feat unimaginable for a society that had not yet invented pottery or writing.